Two boats, same anchorage, same morning. One of them left. The anchorage was off the coast of Lanzarote in the Canary Islands. November, the kind of flat calm that makes you think the Atlantic Passage is going to be easy. The first boat had a Volvo Penta D2-75F, launched in 2018. 70 hours on the clock. The skipper turned the key. The engine hunted. Revolutions per minute surging up, falling back, surging again. By the second morning, the stop button stopped responding. By the third morning, the engine cut and did not start again. He anchored and waited. The Volvo Penta service agent in Lanzarote told him he had replaced 19 MDI units that season. 19. One port, one season. The part had to be flown in. He waited 6 days. The second boat had a Yanmar 3GM30F, launched in 1991. 3,200 hours on the clock. The skipper turned the key. The engine started. He left. That is not an opinion. That is the documented record of what two different architectural decisions produce in the same body of water under the same conditions. This channel is Yachts and Boats. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. What do you own when you own a mechanical diesel, and when did the answer change? The story of Yanmar and sailboat engines starts in Osaka in 1912. Not with boats, with farmers. Magokichi Yamaoka founded his engine company with one stated purpose: ease the burden on people working in harsh conditions. That is not a brand line written by a marketing department in 2024. That is the founding instruction the company gave itself 113 years ago, and the engineering record shows it was not abandoned. The first Yanmar marine engine launched in 1925 for fishing boats. The LB series, the smallest vertical diesel engine in the world, launched in 1947. The first purpose-built recreational marine engine, the PMX, launched in 1971. The YSE, Yacht Series engine, arrived in 1972 and was built specifically for sailing yachts. Every one of those engines answered the same question in the same way. A man on the water, possibly far from anyone who can help him, needs an engine he can understand, diagnose, and fix with what he carries. In 1968, Yanmar became the first diesel engine manufacturer to receive the Deming Prize for Total Quality Management. The Deming Prize is not a marketing award. It is an engineering audit conducted by independent examiners who assess whether quality is built into the manufacturing process or bolted on afterward. Yanmar passed that audit before the first sovereign sailor put a GM series engine under his companionway stairs. The standard was there before the boat was there. The two GM20 and three GM30 families, the mechanical diesels that went into hundreds of thousands of sailboats through the 1980s and the 1990s, are the product of that philosophy carried forward across 4 decades. 2 and 3 cylinders. Indirect injection, inline pump. Mechanical engine management. No electronic control module sitting between the key and the combustion chamber. A Mack Boring representative, a Yanmar distributor running a diesel maintenance course, stated the expected lifespan of a well-maintained GM series engine at 20,000 hours. The 3GM30F, with 3,200 hours in that Lanzarote anchorage, was not an old engine. It was barely past the midpoint. Latitude 38 magazine reported the documented service range for marine diesels at 10,000 to 14,000 hours with proper maintenance. Fleet operators running 3GM30F engines in shore-based fleets describe the service cycle without ambiguity: rebuild or replace every 10,000 hours. The 1GM series, the 2GM, and the 3GM Edge are compression dependent. They run at a high compression ratio. No glow plugs are required. The combustion chamber creates its own heat from the compression alone. The engine that starts with a key turn in the morning damp requires nothing from a software layer to do it. A sailor who ran a 1978 Yanmar YSB-8 for 15 years of active cruising reported the complete maintenance record: oil, filters, impeller swaps, fresh water flush before winter layup, no service calls, no failed starts, nothing else. The GM series parts list crosses directly into the agricultural supply chain. Impellers, belts, fuel filters, these are not marine-specific proprietary components. A sailing yacht in the Marquesas Islands or the Azores drew from the same industrial supply depot as a Kubota tractor in the same region. The ocean passage and the farm field sourced from the same shelf. That is not incidental. Yanmar designed for working people in remote conditions. The fishing boat in 1925, the rice farm in 1933, the sailing yacht in 1972. The user in each case was far from a manufacturer's service network and needed to fix the problem with what he had. The parts supply chain is the philosophy made concrete. The mechanical pump is visible. The injection rack is readable. The fuel circuit from tank to injector can be walked by any competent marine mechanic on any inhabited coastline. When the engine will not start, the diagnosis begins with the eyes and the hands. Loosen the injection nuts, turn the engine over, watch whether fuel spits at the connection. Fuel present, check the bleed screw. Bleed screw clear, check the filter. Filter clear, check the solenoid. Every step is a physical action on a visible component. When a raw water pump impeller fails in a remote anchorage, the replacement takes 20 minutes. The spare lives in a plastic bag in the tool drawer. The engine asks nothing of the sailor except basic mechanical competence and a willingness to read the service schedule. No computer required, no proprietary fault code to decode. The authorized service center plays no role in a diagnosis the sailor runs with a screwdriver. That is what the sailors who chose Yanmar were buying. Many of them did not articulate it that way at the time. They chose on reputation, on price, on what the surveyor recommended. The architecture that protected them was underneath the decision, not visible at the point of purchase. What Yanmar built between 1972 and 2013 was an engine the sailor could fix. Now consider what that statement means and why it has to be stated as praise rather than assumed as baseline. In 2006, Volvo Penta shipped the D-series diesel for sailboat auxiliaries, the D1 and D2 family. Direct successors to the MD 2020, the engine that had documented lifespans of 8,000 to 10,000 hours on YBW forum threads and Sailing Anarchy records. The mechanical heart of the D2 was built on the same Perkins industrial block architecture that had served the MD series for 4 decades. But the D-series had to participate in the EVC ecosystem, the electronic vessel control platform. Volvo Penta had developed for the powerboat market. To connect a mechanical diesel to an electronic instrument network, the company installed the MDI, the Mechanical Diesel Interface, a black plastic module approximately the size of a thick paperback book, mounted against the exhaust manifold. The MDI had zero control of the engine once it was running. Every combustion function, including fuel delivery, injection timing, and the mechanical operation of the engine, ran on the Perkins block underneath it. The MDI translated analog sensor readings into digital signals for the instrument display. It handled 4 control signals: glow plug, preheat, starter motor, fuel stop solenoid, and alternator activation. Without the MDI present and functional, the engine would not start. The starter motor solenoid received no signal. The glow plugs received no preheat. The fuel stop solenoid stayed closed. The 45-year-old mechanical engine underneath sat ready to run. It could not be reached. Eric Bretschneider, marine engineer and founder of Nordkin Design, published a detailed analysis of the MDI architecture in July 2019. His conclusion, drawn from published Volvo Penta documentation and the full part number revision history, was engineering documentation rather than opinion. He wrote that the MDI had zero control of the engine's operation once running. He wrote that the only driver behind the module's many revisions had been reliability. He documented 14 distinct hardware versions of the MDI in 19 years. He noted that some revisions performed worse than the modules they replaced, requiring yet further revision. Power Products Systems, a technical maintenance firm, documented the MDI failure window in December 2025. Modules in D1 and D2 engines show age-related failures after 7 to 12 years, regardless of operating hours. The module ages on a calendar, not on an odometer. The sailor who uses his boat 2 weeks every summer is not protected by his low engine hours. The MDI mounted against the exhaust manifold is degrading from heat, vibration, and salt air whether the engine runs or not. 4 government-classified product safety campaigns in 8 years. The UK Office for Product Safety and Standards issued a recall in March 2025. Risk level high, risk-type injuries, and drowning. A second recall for hydraulic hose failures on D4 and D6 engines followed in March 2026. The mechanical MD series ran for 47 years without a government safety recall for its fundamental control systems. What you have in those 2 records is the documented cost of one architectural decision, the choice to make the instrument network mandatory rather than optional. The sailor with the 2018 D2-75F waited 6 days in Lanzarote for a module that performs no function his engine needs to run. That is the gap. Which brings the question this video exists to answer. Consider what the diagnosis looked like on the other boat. The 3GM30F owner, same Anchorage, hears a stumble. The engine runs rough on startup. He opens the engine compartment. He checks the raw water flow at the exhaust. Water is present and the cooling circuit is intact. He feels the injector lines, pressure arriving. He loosens the bleed screw at the fuel pump. Air is in the secondary circuit. He bleeds it. He restarts. The engine runs clean. Total time, 22 minutes. Tools used, a flathead screwdriver and a rag. Parts replaced, none. Dealer involved, none. That is not an exceptional outcome. It is the designed outcome of a machine built to be fixed at sea. Was this outcome inevitable? Were emissions regulations the real reason the MDI became necessary, or was it a choice? Yanmar answered that question in 2009. The YM series, the 2YM15, the 3YM20, and the 3YM30 is a fully mechanical, indirect injection diesel. Inline pump. No electronic control module. No CAN bus, no proprietary diagnostic interface. The 3YM20 meets EPA Tier 3 and EU RCD2 emission standards. This was confirmed in 2009. It meets those standards through injection system geometry and combustion chamber design alone. There is no software, no firmware, no module bolted to the exhaust manifold. It is still sold new in 2025. The argument that emissions compliance required mandatory electronic dependency was disproved by a Yanmar product 16 years ago. The MDI was not an engineering necessity. It was a commercial architecture decision, an instrument ecosystem that required a component between the sailor and the engine, serviceable only by the Volvo Penta dealer network. Which part of the record surprises you more, the 14 hardware revisions, or the fact that the fix was available the whole time? Drop the answer in the comments. The 4JHCR series, the Yanmar Common Rail sailboat engine introduced in 2014, does carry electronic injection and ECU fault codes readable through dealer-level diagnostic tools. On that engine, some diagnostic functions require a software interface, but the controls remain mechanical as standard. The electronic system is available as an option. The architecture does not mandate that an instrument ecosystem sit between the key and combustion as the price of starting. The sailor who needs to bypass a control failure at sea has not been locked out of his own engine by design. The current JHCR series also carries full HVO certification, hydro-treated vegetable oil, a drop-in renewable diesel derived from used cooking oils and agricultural byproducts. No engine modifications required, no firmware update, no manufacturer authorization needed to switch fuel sources. The mechanical injection system runs what you put in. A mechanical diesel you cannot be locked out of, certified for the fuel you can source, grow, or produce from waste. That is the endpoint of a philosophy that began in an Osaka engine workshop in 1912. The sailors who chose Yanmar for blue water passages in the 1990s and 2000s did not know that Volvo Penta would install an MDI requiring 14 revisions. They did not know the UK government would classify a Volvo Penta engine control system as a drowning risk in 2025. They chose Yanmar because the engine had a service record and the parts were available wherever fishing boats go. Diesel Services of America, in a February 2026 analysis, put it plainly: fewer. Electronic systems mean fewer potential failure points, an advantage for cruisers venturing to remote locations where sophisticated diagnostic equipment is unavailable. The straightforward design allows skilled marine diesel technicians to diagnose and repair issues without manufacturer-specific diagnostic computers. That is not advocacy. That is a maintenance firm describing what its technicians encounter in the field. Yanmar's global service network spans more than 2,000 authorized dealers in over 130 countries. The parts inventory system maintains 43,200 line items in the Americas region warehouse alone. The Corbin 39 Association documented cruisers finding Yanmar parts available throughout the South Pacific on extended passages. The sailor with the 3GM30F who left Lanzarote that November morning was not sailing with a plan. He was sailing with a philosophy encoded in the engine, built by a company whose founding instruction has not changed since 1912. Ease the burden on people working in harsh conditions. He turned the key. The engine started. He left. The records that vindicate that choice were written after the fact. The MDI revision tables, the power products analysis, the government recalls, the forum threads from sailors waiting for parts in anchorages they should have already left. None of that was visible in 1997 when the decision was made. The architecture was. A mechanical diesel you can diagnose with your eyes is not a dated choice. It is a statement about whose side the machine is on. The Yanmar owner in that Anchorage read the injection pump and was underway. The sailors who knew why they chose mechanical over integrated did not need the failure record to confirm what they had already understood. They had built it into their purchase before the industry created the case for them. What the failure record adds is not a reason to choose differently. It is proof of what the other choice costs, written in 6-day waits and government recalls and 14 hardware revisions in 19 years. If this is the kind of analysis Yachts and Boats covers, subscribe so you do not miss the next one.